What's going on YouTube? Welcome to Anteiku Nation, my home, your home, for all things gaming and all things Cardfight Vanguard 0. Now, today guys, I got a special treat. We're going to go over my Garmore Galahad deck. This is the deck that I used this past weekend in the Clash of Kings YouTube Content Creator Tournament. Now, I did make it into the top 8. We had Swiss rounds of 5, and I'd like to go over my matches, explain some of the moves, some of the mindset behind the decisions that I made, and, you know, just show you what this deck is truly capable of. But before we begin guys, please hit that like button if you like this video, smash that subscribe button, and click the bell so that you can be notified each and every time that I upload a new video. And with all that being said guys, let's dive right into it. That I took into the Clash of Kings tournament this past weekend, May 23rd, against other content creators. I want to go over real quick just the deck recipe and explain just, you know, my choices and why I chose the cards that I did in this deck. So, first off, we are running the Galahad Ride Chain, okay? So we do have the grade 0, we do have the grade 1s. Let's click on this real quick. So this is Galahad. I have done another deck profile video on that, so if you'd like to go check it out, you know, please feel free to check that video out. So basically the Ride Chain just kind of like fetches other pieces. It searches the top 5 of the deck for each piece upon riding the previous grade, okay? So, my reasoning behind using the Ride Chain is because not only is the grade 3 just really great, if you have 6 units in the soul, you may CB2 to gain a crit, which is not just a once per turn, but you can activate it multiple times as long as you can meet the conditions. The Ride Chain allows you to do other things, because if you already have the pieces in your hand, it's a mandatory search each turn or each grade that you go to ride up. So every time you go to ride next grade, it's going to mandatory to check the top 5. And if it does, and you do get the grade, it's thinning your deck out, because they're going to search each individual piece. They're going to take the piece out of the deck. They're going to go ahead and superior ride it. Therefore, you cannot ride anymore for that turn. Therefore, you're thinning your deck, and you're giving yourself more opportunity to actually hit a trigger or check into a trigger for damage or drive check purposes. So, that is my reasoning simply behind the Ride Chain. Now, I compacted this with the Garmore Snuggle build. So I combine these two elements to make a neat little package of a defensive offensive strategy. And it works. It does work. It may not hit those magical numbers that a pure Garmore build with the Brugels and the Snogles and with the 11k grade 2 attackers, but this deck does something else. Okay, it's about superior calling, making a field, thinning your deck, getting pieces that you need, getting rid of pieces that you don't need. Because what I do is I run 4 Blaster Blade. This is, you know, to get rid of annoying interceptors that you just can't deal with in certain situations. Now what I chose to do is actually run the grade 2 Garmore. I will display the SP because he looks amazing. Because Garmore's just simple, okay? He's a free cost. You drop him onto the rear guard circle, and in the best case scenario and the strategy that you would like is that you're going to ditch one of your extra grade 1 Galahads. So you ditch it, you fetch a Snuggle, you superior call it, therefore you've made a column for 1 card, you've thinned your deck, and you're giving yourself more opportunity to hit a trigger. That is the mindset behind the strategy of this deck, and it works. It works. So that puts us at 4 Blaster Blade and 4 grade 2. The other grade 2 that we run is obviously the grade 2 for the Ride Chain. You run it at a max 4 because you want to check into it. Yeah, it's vanilla on the rear guard, but it's also another ditch target to fetch your Snuggle with Garmore. Whether it's the grade 2 or the grade 3 Garmore, you're going to be ditching resources you don't need to fetch what you do need, and again, thinning the deck. It's all about thinning the deck and pulling out non-triggers and leaving in triggers. Let's keep that in mind. We are running the Snuggle package. It's an amazing booster that during your turn, this unit gets plus 1k for every other Snuggle. You will see in this video all the different ways that I actually played this deck in every type of scenario that you can possibly imagine outside of seeing me play it against Kagero. you'll see how the snuggles work. You'll see the benefit of running them. You're going to see how they synergize with the deck and why they are such a neat and important package in this format. We do tech in one other grade 2, which is Gigantech Dozer. Now, this is only here for a 12k attacker. It makes magical numbers because if you got an 8k snuggle behind it, it's 20k. If it's a 9k, then all of a sudden you're swinging for 21, which is, again, magic numbers, magic number land. There's not much to say about it. It was only teched in at 1 because you don't want to see this. You only want to see it when you can see it. All right, so grade 3s. Obviously, we're running the MVP of this deck, and that is Knight of Godly Speed, Galahad. You have 6 soul. You're allowed to counterblast 2. You gain 3k in a crit. So he self-powers himself up, and he gives himself extra damage output. Amazing, amazing card, and for minimum cost, 2 black counterblasts in this deck is not a bad cost. The only thing is, and you will see it in the footage, is that you have to, in certain scenarios, you have to decide, do I want to activate this ability, or do I want to activate Blaster Blade's ability? And it comes down to situations. You have to make the best decision for you in the situation that you're given. Now, we do run at a solid, let's go ahead and back this up real quick because I want to display it. It's really pretty. We do run for Garmore. Garmore is in here because he is also our backup grade 3. He is also here because he is our defensive mode of the deck. Galahad is our offensive. He's aggressive, but Garmore is defensive mode. When things are going bad and you're like, I don't have enough interceptors, I need to kind of switch gears up to try to survive if I'm in a bad situation, you can go from offensive to defensive very quickly in this deck, and it's all thanks to Garmore. Okay, Garmore on the Vanguard circle does 2 things. 1, he can fetch you another snuggle if you don't have a full field, and you actually have one still in the deck, and you're going to ditch something and get the snuggle, just like grade 2. Okay, but then he does something else. For every snuggle and Brugal on the field, which we do not run Brugal, he does get a power of 1,000 for each one, and he does something even better. He turns those snuggle pups, the doggos, as we call them, doggos, into interceptors. So now all of a sudden you're not running 13 grade 2 interceptors, you're running 17 interceptors. And it's a beautiful engine. It's very well put together, and it works. It works, it works, it works. Cannot stress that enough. It is such an amazing card. And if you can get your hands on it, guys, build it. I'm a little hesitant to tell you that right now because we're getting ready to switch gears. We're getting ready to go into a different format and a different season with new cards, new abilities, and yeah, I don't know if it's going to be as important as it is right now, especially since we're coming to the end of the season. Anyway, for right now, guys, I do only have 2 copies of Gancelot, and I kid you not, even though I only have 2 copies, I see it more times than not. And in this video, you are going to see all of my matchups, and you're going to see how often I actually do see my 2 Gancelots. And you're going to see how much work 2 Gancelots puts in. Now, if I had 4, I can only begin to imagine the synergy and the likelihood that I would actually see my Gancelots and how much more work that would actually put in. This is an MVP of the deck, guys. He's really good. He's really strong. If you can make him, make him. If you got him, put him in the deck. So, we also have teched in, since I don't have 2 Gancelots, I teched in 2 Palamedes, because Palamedes is a 13k attacker on the rear guard. He lines up with magic numbers with the snuggles behind him, and that's my thought process behind this. I want to make magic numbers. I want to be able to hit certain thresholds so that I can pressure my opponent if I need to. Now, there are 2 tech-in choices, or 2 other tech-in choices of this deck outside of Gigantech Dozer. That goes to my grade 3 spot of Soul Saver Dragon. Soul Saver Dragon ability is amazing in 0, because in the old format of the TCG back in the original days, you can only activate Soul Saver's ability on the Vanguard. They did one better, and they gave it a buff that it can actually activate on the rear guard circle. This is amazing, because you will also see there are certain situations, guys, where like you can power up Galahad with his ability by counterblasting 2. He gets his crit. Once that's fulfilled, you can then drop your Soul Saver, blast the soul of 4 units out of the soul to go ahead and power up 3 of your rear guards for 5,000 apiece. It's a pressure move. It's also a bit of a Hail Mary move. I do not use this ability unless I absolutely have to, and it's pretty much a YOLO. It's a Hail Mary. It's all or nothing, go big, go home move. And it works. Doesn't always work, but it works when it needs to. So, next piece up, we have our last piece of the deck, and that's Pongal. We have Pongal in here because if we find ourselves in a situation we haven't drawn into Soul Saver, and we're in a position where like we want to push for game, we want to, you know, push them as hard as we possibly can, we can fetch Soul Saver and we can fuel the soul even further. So even if the ride chain was to go a little off, let's say you didn't get the grade 2, Pongal fixes that because he'll go into the soul and then he gives you the ability to get your Soul Saver Dragon, and then he's going to put your Galahad grade 3 online. So now you're sitting at 6 soul and you now have, you know, all the other things that you need. So yeah, Pongal does work. Well, as a matter of fact, hold up. Let me back that up for a second, guys, because I think when run upon, unfortunately, no. Let me back that up. Okay, I had to think about that for a second because I have been able to correct the soul count before. So let me back that up 1 second, guys. If you don't ride the grade 2, he doesn't correct the soul. I think he corrects it. He only corrects it if you don't ride the grade 1. Now, if you ride the grade 2 and then you go into the grade 3, it will correct the soul. By putting Pongal into the soul, you will correct it and you will get your 6 soul. Only if you ride the grade 2. Okay, and that's only, you know, on the chance that, again, you don't ride the grade 1. Anyway, so yeah, guys, that's my thought process behind this deck. Offensive, defensive, we switch gears. We got the best of both worlds. We got a nice little neat package in the ride chain. We're able to pull stuff out. We're able to keep stuff in that we want. We're able to make board presence. We're able to do a lot of things with this deck. And I'm really happy with it, guys. I'm Legend 27 right now with this deck. I have almost purely run this deck in Legend this season. And I didn't run Royal Paladin at all last season, like at all. I was always Kagero Nova. But I have played this deck so much, and almost every time I get the ride chain off. 95% of my matches, I get this ride chain off. I cannot say that about Tsukuyomi, unfortunately. I have played Tsukuyomi. I intended to play Tsukuyomi. She does not like me. But anyway, guys, I don't want to dabble in this too long. I would just want to touch on this deck, revisit it, explain the mindset, explain what this deck does, what its purpose is, and I promise you guys, it does what it does. It's an amazing deck. It is super fun, and I hope that it finds you well. I hope that, you know, maybe going into the next season, maybe you can't get your hands on those Majesty Lords. Maybe you can't quite get what you want to make Majesty Lord, you know, be completed. But you have these pieces. Still run this deck, guys. It's going to be strong. It's going to be really strong. Like, it's not going to be not good. It competes against Perfect Razor. In this video, you're going to see all of this. You're going to see all the different matchups. But anyway, guys, please, I hope that you do give this deck a try. I really do. And with all that being said, guys, let's go ahead and dive into all of our matchups and show some in-game footage. And again, we'll catch you on the other side. Stay tuned. Alright, guys, so round 1, I got paired up against Irzadhin. Please forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But in this matchup, it was Royal versus Royal. At first I was kind of like, you know, is this going to be the mirror match? And actually, it really was the mirror match. He was running the riot chain. He was running the snoggles and stuff. And so I kind of went into this feeling like this is going to be any man's game. But initially, right off the bat, this match took a turn to which I tried to capitalize on. I don't know, again, if we were running the same trigger lineup. I don't know if maybe what differences we actually had in our decks. But he was definitely running the ride chain. He was definitely running the snoggles and stuff. So what I want to do here is I want to fast forward, guys. Let's go ahead and get past this. And we're going to get right here to... let's go here. This is where things kind of got a little different as the choices that he made. He decided to go like super aggro on me early on. He went very, very aggressive in the early game. And I can see why he chose this strategy. But he dumped almost his entire hand here. I question whether or not this was a PG, so that could have been the PG or it could have been the grade 3. I don't exactly remember. But you know, he hits me here with the snoggle. Then he proceeds to, you know, go here with the Garmore, and then he swings again with his Vanguard. Now we hit a heal that powers us up, that puts us up at like 22k. So now we're just waiting, can he hit a trigger? Because if he'd hit a trigger at this point, he would have actually connected with us. But unfortunately, he was unable to hit a trigger. He was unable to deal any more damage. So he only got one piece of damage off of us that match altogether. So what I like to do with this deck is, obviously we got the grade 2 on this turn, and so we kind of had to return to favor. We needed to try to even the playing field, and so I wanted to be able to get rid of all of this, especially the snuggle cost. The snuggle was going to be that was going to be a pain if we'd have let that stay. So I made a move and decided to drop the Galahad because it would connect and get rid of the snuggle. I didn't really care if I lost the Galahad. Now I chose to attack with Galahad because I don't run crits in this deck. We're running 9 draw 4 heal, so it didn't really matter if we attacked with this because it wasn't swinging for crit. And I left this one open because it was a full-on column, even though this would have still connected, but it was just a wonky move that I did decide to make. Now if we fast forward, on his turn, we see that, let's fast forward, that he does get the grade 3. He does end up with a grade 3. He soul charges 2 triggers. That was actually pertinent knowledge to have, knowing that he had soul charged 2. So I tried to keep tabs on everything that he was doing during the match and seeing like how everything fell. He does activate the Blaster Blade here to get rid of the Galahad. But he was kind of contemplating. I think what he was trying to decide is whether or not he wanted to actually use the Galahad skill or if he wanted to use Blaster Blade. And I could see that because he could have used Blaster Blade to get rid of my grade 2 Galahad and then proceed to deal damage to me. But I also see why he chose the route that he did. Either way, he still did 2 damage. He still got me for 2 damage, but we did hit a heal trigger. And that was kind of interesting because I wasn't really banking on hitting a heal trigger that match, or at that time, I'm sorry. So yeah, he checks into the Galatine. He checks PG, so there's a big whiff there. So now we fast forward, guys, a little bit. We actually check into the grade 3 on the search ability, and we soul charge. So we're sitting in at 3 damage here. We're able to get this off, and so we proceed to get the Garmore. We actually ditch a Garmore so that we can get a doggo, aka Snuggle, to fill up our field. Okay, and so then I ended up deciding to go with the grade 2 so that this way we have a little bit of a damage cushioner. We have a column here. This is going to go face, so we get rid of the Blaster Blade with the weaker column, and then we proceed face so that if we hit a trigger, we could power this up further and deal 3 damage to his face. At least that was the mindset, and we do actually hit the trigger here. So we give the power to the Garmore. We whiffed on the second check, but this was going to be swinging for 23, so if he didn't hit a trigger here, we were going to be sitting pretty. Unfortunately, though, he did damage check a trigger, and that put him at 26, so we weren't able to hit him, but we were able to get rid of the dog, which, even though we're swinging for massive numbers, was still a win because we didn't really want him to have those snuggles on board. We really did not, because I already know how that strategy works, and these guys get kind of stupid if they're left unchecked. So now we fast forward to his turn. He goes on to use Gancelot's skill and go ahead and search for a Blaster Blade. In this point, he's able to, he could have actually got rid of the Galahad with the Blaster Blade, but what he chose to do is instead fuel Galahad, proceed to kill my Galahad grade 2 with the Blaster Blade, which left him open right here. So we kind of waited to see what he was going to do. He actually chose, which was kind of a smart move, he wanted to try to get more damage in. So he went with the Palamedes move of hitting me, putting me at, it would have put me at 16, but it put me at 21. So now this is 22. This would have connected, but I had a PG in hand. So this wasn't going to go through at all. He did hit a heal on this turn, obviously, so that actually kind of like set us back a little bit. But we still had 2 damage over here unflipped, so we were able to, you know, power this up next turn. So yeah, guys, we PG'd this. I wasn't sweating that. I mean, that could have been bad had we not had a PG in hand, but thankfully we did. And so now we proceed. And we drop the Snuggle here just to fulfill this, give us more power, so that we can try to push even further for game. Now, I contemplated here, do I use the Blaster Blade to get rid of the Blaster Blade, or do I use the skill to pump him up? Now, what I decided to do, though, was to just go ahead and forego the ability. We forego the ability so that we can actually power up the Ganslot, or the Galahad. So yeah, we activate that here, and then we're just going to use the Blaster Blade to get rid of that, and then we go face. Because he's got no cards in hand. We knew this was going to connect. So there was no worry about him obviously dropping a PG, because we knew it was going to connect. But I took a bit of his strategy on this one, and I decided to actually swing with this column, hoping that he wouldn't get too big. I mean, we were swinging for 23k, so even if he hit a damage trigger, he was going to end up at 21k, so I knew it was going to connect. And this way, the only way he was going to win this is if he had hit a heal trigger on it. So he damage checks a draw, and then the final check is Galahad. So yeah, the first matchup was pretty fun. I mean, it was a very fun match. I wasn't sure which way it was going to go. I was kind of nervous because I already know what the deck can do. I know the strategy behind it, and it's scary when you face that mirror match, because at that point it's like, who's going to go off first? Who's going to get PGs first? Who's going to get triggers first? And it just fell, you know, in my favor. It was definitely a really fun matchup, and I hope at some point in time again I actually get to face them off again, because that was really fun. But you know, stay tuned, guys. We're getting ready to flip over to the next round, so yeah, stay tuned for that. All right, guys. Next up, we've got round 2. In this pairing, I was facing off against Cardfight Nation. Now, he was rocking a Gran Blue deck, and I was a bit surprised seeing Gran Blue actually at the tournament. But at the same time, I really was kind of tipping my hat to the fact that he chose to run Gran Blue, because Gran Blue's kind of in a wonky position right now, it feels like, where it doesn't really have the best grade 3 lineup. And so it's kind of like the underdog deck. You're really pulling for the underdog. But I think it was a cool and interesting choice that he did choose to go with go with Gran Blue. Now, if you're asking me, guys, what do I do during my mulligans? In my mulligans with Garmore Galahad, I always mulligan. If I have 1 or 2 pieces, I mulligan everything else back to try and get the other piece. No matter how many pieces I have, whether it's 1 or 2, I always mulligan the rest to try and get the third piece, whichever one that I'm missing. But even times when I don't get quite all of the Galahad ride chain in my hand, I've just been very fortunate and lucky that the ride chain kind of favors me in a sense, and that it just kind of always goes off. Because if you see here, we check the top, we actually get Galahad. I don't remember if I actually didn't have it in hand or not, so I can't really say for sure like how much we were plussing. I did have obviously the Ganslot in my hand, so it was always wise to like just go ahead and shuffle him back into the deck and pull a Blaster Blade out, so that increases your chance of hitting a trigger, which we did trigger check or drive check the Palamides heal trigger here. It was unfortunate though that he did hit the draw trigger. It kind of gave me an idea of like, you know, what to expect, because you know what my question was he running all draws or was he running crits? You know, how was he deciding to actually run Gran Blue? I don't really come up against Gran Blue all that often, so I'm not entirely familiar with actually the ratio of triggers and what people choose to actually run when it comes to Gran Blue. But this was a really fun matchup. I was a little bit more relaxed in it, but I'm going to be honest though, he did keep pressure on me a little bit by keep bringing back the Night Mist. Like, this became a recurring thing that like I was constantly having to deal with his grade 2 interceptors. So if we fast forward onto my turn, you're gonna see what I'm talking about. So he forced me to do something that I really didn't want to do. So this was smart on his end. While he was going offensive with the Night Mist, that also gave him defensive purposes, you know, because it forced me to drop more cards on board. Because typically what I'm going to do is on my grade 2 turn, I would go into my Galahad, and if it's the perfect storm, I'm going to drop my Garmore here on the left-hand column. And then I like to go ahead and ditch maybe an additional piece of Galahad, like potentially like the grade 1. So that I can get a doggo out of the deck and try to thin my deck out to increase my chances of hitting triggers. But unfortunately, he forced my hand to have to drop more cards. And it doesn't look like in this situation, guys, I actually had the Garmore grade 2, which I run at a 4 of. So I had to make some kind of wonky decisions on how I was going to deal with his board to contest it. And with this little Brutal Jack pirate ship over here, it being an 11k kind of puts you in a weird position because you can't just trade a 10k into it. You can't just trade a 9k into it. You actually have to have a booster behind your grade 2 to contest this. Night Mist, on the other hand, is not so bad because our doggos can actually contest Night Mist, but the pirate ship, not so much. So we check the top. We actually get the Galahad, as always, and I say that with love. I don't say that in an egotistical way. But we did soul charge a PG at this point. That felt a little bad because I didn't really know, again, how this match was going to go. I felt confident in myself that I could actually seal this match, but it was still a struggle because this dude was just constantly, Nation was just constantly pushing out grade 2s. So I did choose to go with the, to activate Galahad's ability, and we did drop the Garmore here so that we can actually build a column. And I went ahead and I used Blaster Blade because Blaster Blade was going to get rid of this, and then we were going to get rid of this with the Garmore rear guard column so that we could proceed to at least put him to 2 damage, which we were, you know, successful in doing. We did hit a heal, which put us in a better spot because now we were only at 1 damage where we're about to put him at 4. So let's go ahead and see how his drive checks rounded out because I can't quite remember. Yeah, that's right. He did hit that heal. I remember that because I was trying to keep track of how many heals I was seeing, whether if they were in the drop zone, in the damage zone, or potentially in the soul, or not the soul, but you know, in the drop zone or the damage zone. So let's fast forward a little bit. He drops the Baskirk, which he then sacrificed in order to bring Night Mist out, which then he proceeds to bring out Ruin Shade. Now I felt a little bit more confident again because I knew now, okay, he's got 2 cards in hand. I saw some triggers that he ditched. He has 2 of these out on the field. We're going to deal with those and contest it, and then we're going to go face. Because with Grand Blue, they can't do anything except for attack for 3 attacks. So you kind of plan around being able to mitigate the damage and try to contest their board to control them a little bit to keep the grade 2s off. Now, it's kind of hard because Night Mist keeps recurring, and that's kind of his shtick. That's what he does. Now we did check into, or we did draw into a PG, which was wonderful. We couldn't activate any abilities though this turn because we were only at 1 damage. I did choose not to activate Garmore's ability this turn. I was just trying to fuel my field so that I could get his pieces off the board. So yeah, we contest that and then we go, you know, face with the Vanguard. We could have gone with the Vanguard against the rear guard, but it didn't really matter. We didn't really drive check anything too fancy that time. But we were still at 2 damage. We pushed him to 4. Let's fast forward a little bit. So he gets the Night Mist back out, okay? And now he gets another Night Mist. So this is what I'm saying. Like, he kept pressure on me the entire match in order to, like, keep these grade 2 interceptors on there. So it was a good way for him to kind of, like, mitigate and soak up damage and to, you know, go offensive as best that he could. His strategy was solid. Like, I'm not gonna lie, he was definitely pushing me, and I was feeling that pressure. Thankfully, we did damage check a trigger. We did draw into the heal trigger as well, so that set us up to be able to get rid of the Gancelot next turn. Go ahead and shuffle it back into the deck, and also draw into our Blaster Blade, because now we had 2 damage here, and I felt like the best strategy here was to actually go ahead and use Gancelot. Like I said, grab the Blaster Blade, and I'm pretty sure at this point I used Blaster Blade to nuke one of his Night Mists. So let's fast forward this a little bit. Yeah, Blaster Blade goes off. We get that Night Mist, this was just like the perfect scenario because this allowed us at least get 2 more attacks in to try and seal the game. So yeah, let's go forward. So at this point, what I chose to do was to drop Soul Saver Dragon, okay, so that we can have an extra attacker. And I was looking to see how many PGs we saw. I was also looking to see how many heal triggers had we seen in this matchup, because I wanted to see what my chances were that we could actually seal the deal with him being at 4 damage this turn. I had actually chosen not to activate the ability because I was really more concerned with the fact that he had all those cards in hand, that he was more than likely going to hit a PG at this point. Let's fast forward a little bit. We drive check. We whiffed on the drive check. We put him up to 5 damage, and now we proceed to hit him with our Blaster Blade. And of course, he had the PG. This is again, this is exactly why I did not want to use the Soul Saver ability, because I kind of felt like it was going to whiff, and it would have been a waste of an ability. Plus, we would have been sitting on vanilla on Galahad for the rest of the game, and that felt, you know, kind of bad. That felt really bad. So he gets out another Night Mist yet again. Unfortunately, it was all that he could do to try to contest my board at this point. He does hit the draw trigger, but I mean, it was still only going to be one attack going through. He does hit the heal, so that set us back a little bit. He does put us at 1 damage, so the next turn we're not going to be able to activate Galahad's skill. So if we fast forward a little bit, we were able to fetch out another doggo with the Garmore to go ahead and fill up our field and have a complete field. And at this point, I'm still debating about, do I use the Soul Saver ability here to power up the entire field since he's at 4 damage again. We knew that he saw, you know, a PG, and I was trying to debate what are the chances? What are the chances that I can go ahead and, you know, finish this match off and just be done with it? But again, I choose not to go into Soul Saver's ability for fear that if by some chance we can't finish him off this turn, we're not just sitting on a vanilla Galahad, because I felt like more than likely he had more PGs. So we do hit the heal. That set us up in a pretty spot. We do get power to the Soul Saver. He hits a heal. It felt unfortunate, but it did go off for him. So we only got, like, you know, we pushed him back to 5. We were able to push him back to 5. So if we fast forward, let's see what his turn was. So he drops the pirate ship again. He gets his Night Mist back off. And again, we're seeing that recurring theme of Grand Blue keeping their grade 2s, which is what the deck really wants to do. It wants to keep bringing back grade 2s. It wants to keep grade 2s on the field to pressure you. But this is why, like, Blockade is a good deck against Grand Blue, because Blockade just shuts all this down and bypasses it. And it just kind of kills the strategy that Grand Blue has by being able to bring back its interceptors. Now, we were sitting again at 2 damage this turn. I did decide to go ahead and use Blaster Blade again. This set us up really pretty so that we can nuke that and then proceed to use Blaster Blade to kill his Night Mist. Now, I could have done that, but I ended up choosing to use the Snoggle because that was just a fair trade. Like, that was one of the easiest trades I could make. And then we proceeded to hope that we could just seal the match at this point. It seemed like, you know, it's the only thing that we had to do. We had to go for game. So yeah, we do hit the heal trigger, or the draw trigger here, powering up Blaster Blade. So even if he had hit a heal trigger and he had no PG, we would have climbed over the heal check. All right, so see, this goes back to why we did not activate the Soul Saver ability, because he was just sitting on PGs the whole time. But thankfully, we do have, you know, Blaster Blade. We were only sitting at, I think, 4 damage at this point. It's kind of hard to see it due to the screen. Well, let's go ahead and fast forward this a little bit. So at this point, all he has is the grade 2. Fairly certain he's got that. He ends up conceding. He conceded that match. So that told me, you know, he knew that we had, you know, obviously he knew we had the game in the bag, because there was nothing he can do to, like, finish us off. And so yeah, Grand Blue against Royal Paladin Galahad, we put in work. We put in a lot of work. It was a really fun match, and he's another player I really hope that I get to play again, because He made all the best decisions that he could with his deck, and you couldn't ask for more from that. You could not ask for more from that. We're getting ready to go into round 3, guys, so stay tuned. I got paired up against Adreus. Now, everybody knows Adreus. He was the #1 legend player in Season 1, Sword of Courage. This was an honor. This was really cool and a very exciting moment for me to be able to play against the #1 legend player from Season 1 of all people. This was a bit of a mirror match in this sense, but he was playing the pure version of Garmore. He was not running the ride chain, and he was able to capitalize on Garmore's ability and the fact of having extra interceptors, as well as being able to build massive columns. Now, this is where people are like, the Garmore pure build is what I call it, because you don't run the ride chain. They say that it's better than the ride chain, the Garmore Galahad. I'm still a little on the fence about it, because the match could have kind of gone either which way, but he was able to, defeat me in this matchup. All the pieces fell in his favor, and I wasn't even disappointed. Like, it was a solid matchup between the two of us, and I was not disappointed. Like, it was actually cool for me, because this is the first time I'd actually seen the pure Garmore build in action, and it delivered. Like, Adreus delivered on all accounts. He made all the best moves, all the smart moves, and it was so awesome just seeing him go off. So yeah, let's fast forward this a little bit. He gets a Kane. That was great too. I try to meet the conditions of my strategy. Go into Galahad grade 2, then go into my drop my Galahad here. The problem is that my strategy backfired a little bit, because I didn't have Garmore. I more or less love to go into Garmore, ditch a Galahad, and then get a Snoggle. But it did not fall for me that way this game. That is the one thing that went bad in that matchup, is that I could not get my strategy off, which was to get Garmore, ditch a Galahad, get a Snoggle, and again, proceed to thin my deck out so that I can pull triggers out of the deck, or pull Snoggles out of the deck to thin the deck so that I can get more chances of hitting a trigger on my damage check or on my drive check. And he chooses, obviously, to go into Garmore. And that really paid off. He put me in such a bad position, because he kept just pumping out grade 2s, because now Snoggle is an interceptor, Akane is an interceptor, and it was rough, because not only was Snoggle an interceptor, he was, it gets more powerful because he proceeds to use his counterblast to get a Brugal out, and then Brugal powers up Snoggle, Brugal powers up Garmore, and this whole package. I mean, look at that. It just went off. It just went completely off. It was the perfect storm for him. And I'm not even disappointed. Like, you can't be mad about that. Like, at that point, you just gotta be happy and be like, I'm happy for this guy, because he did what he set out to do, and it just worked. It worked beautifully. And it was truly a sight to see. Because look, he's got a 30k column with those 2 Snoggles right there. That is insane. That is insane. At that point, like, I do respect the deck. I do respect his decision to run the Snoggle pure Garmore build. He was also using 11k grade 2 attackers. He was using the Akanes. He had Blaster Blades in there, and the deck was just doing what it does. Because at that point, with Garmore on the Vanguard, you have 17 interceptors in the deck as opposed to having 13. And that really worked out in his favor, because it was just really hard, because not only is the deck offensive with its power up, but it's also defensive in the fact that it creates extra grade 2 interceptors, or I should say interceptors, not grade 2s, because they are grade 1s, but nonetheless. So I did try to contest his board as best I could. I was hoping that I would be able to kind of keep him down, that he wouldn't be able to keep recovering his interceptors, but again, it was a really back and forth match. Like, he was just putting pressure down on me. So he hits the heal, and then he hits my we proceed to hit him with the Blaster Blade. So now let's fast forward again to his turn, because at this point I'm showing off his deck at this point, guys, not my own. just because I was so impressed with it. I was thoroughly impressed with it. So yeah, now we got a 17k column here, we got a 21k column, and then we got another 21k column. All because he's got his board completely full. And that's hard to deal with. That's hard to deal with, especially when you only have a grade 3 and one grade 2. It puts you in a very tight spot, and it kind of feels bad. Feels real bad. So, and see, we couldn't even damage check a trigger at that point. That also hurt us too, though. We couldn't even damage check into a trigger to try to soften up some of his attacks. So now we're at 3 damage. I wanted to try and, you know, push him back a little bit because, again, we had to contest his board. And here was the thing that worked for his strategy. He kept me from using the Galahad ability to get a trigger or to get a crit, because I was having to use my blaster blades to destroy his, you know, defensive strategy of having those dogs up front as interceptors. So yeah, it sucked because I could not push for game. I could not try to push him into a corner with Galahad like I would have liked to, and like what I normally do. But again, it worked out in his favor. It totally worked out in his favor, and there was a reason why he made the first spot in Legend in Season 1. So yeah, let's fast forward a bit, guys. We're not going to dabble too long because, like I said, Adreus does proceed to like wreck my face because he did get his blaster blade off, put me in another bad situation because now he's got 18k columns. He's got this 19k column coming at my face. I'm at 5 damage, I believe, at this point. I don't even think I had a PG in hand. I don't think I had one. I can't remember. No, I didn't. And so, yeah, that was pretty much game. So that was my first loss that I suffered with Royal Paladin in the tournament. So out of 3 matchups, I only lost 1 at that point. And, you know, that felt pretty good. Was not mad about it. Adreus, if you ever see this video, I tip my hat off to you, man. I tip my hat. Cheers. Kudos. Thank you for an awesome matchup, brother. Thank you. I hope we get to play again sometime. All right, guys. It's going to be all for round 3. Stay tuned. We're going to be hitting up round 4. We'll see you there. Guys, so now we're moving on to round 4. In round 4, I got the honor of going up against thederickdao, and I kind of felt bad for this matchup because of the fact that Derek ended up getting grade stuck. He was using the perfect Razor deck, and he does manage to make a push back in this matchup, and it was really awesome because I again, man, I was like, can he make a comeback? And he did. He pushed hard. We do win this matchup against perfect Razor. I mean, crits are like flying everywhere in this matchup. But we do get the Galahad right chain off, as always, because Galahad shows nothing but love for Anteiku, and Anteiku loves Galahad because it's a beautiful relationship that we have, truly. So anyway, let's move forward. So he's on the grade 0. He gets to grade 1, right? So let's fast forward a little bit here. We go to grade 2. We proceed to Soul Charge. We ditch the Gantz a lot. We get our Blaster Blade. Now, we go with Galahad. We drop a Snowball because at this point, I did not have a grade 2 Garmore to proceed to do my strategy. We do hit the heal trigger. We power up. So this felt bad because now we're at 0 damage. We put him at 1 damage. We're swinging for a 21k column at 11k. So, you know, we're definitely hitting at this point. Like, there was no way, shape, or form we were not hitting. So we proceed to take him to 2 damage. So now we fast forward. He got grade stuck. So he was stuck on grade 1 in this match. He did do the best thing that he could. He was like, if I can't make rear guards or make, you know, better columns, he chose to go ahead and power up Burst Razor so that he could at least get rid of my grade 2 and deal 1 point of damage. He checks his grade 2, which would have been nice for him to have drawn into instead of having the drive check. So now we fast forward. We do get the Galahad grade 3. Galahad loves us. We did Soul Charge a heal trigger. That was kind of worrisome because at that point I'm like, okay, if he does find a way to come back, we're down 1 heal. And that felt really bad. Thankfully though, we had 2 PGs in hand, so I felt confident in the fact that, okay, if he does get to perfect Razor and he does start trying to push back for game and contest me, then I would be able to, you know, mitigate those damage. I'm like, obviously he's going to be swinging with the extra crit, so regardless of my situation, those attacks were not going to hit at least 2 times. So I felt pretty confident that I could still maintain my presence in this match to keep the lead over him. Now let's fast forward a little bit, and you know, we get him all the way up to 5. Like, we pushed him on turn 3 all the way up to 5 damage with Garmore Galahad, ladies and gentlemen. Now he does end up getting into Trans Riser, which also led him to get the high powered Razor custom, which then allowed him to, you know, switch it, make a good column here. This is a 15k column, it's pretty solid. But unfortunately all he's able to do is hit my Vanguard, because that's all he's got. He's only got this one column, and he gets one drive check, and it whiffed, unfortunately. Like, if he would have got a heal, that would have made him like sit a little bit, you know, in a much prettier spot. So let's fast forward. At this point, I'm not worried about much of anything, so I proceed with my bullying strategy. I'm like, I'm going to strip his PGs from him at this point. So the idea is, I'm going to swing with this, get rid of the high power custom. I'm going to swing with this, put, you know, strip the PGs out of his hand if he's got any. If he didn't have any, then we were just going to proceed to rack face. So we drive check, we get a whiff. We do hit a trigger, which, you know, put us in a sweet spot. So we power up the Garmore. That put that column at 23k at that point. And of course, you know, he did have the PG. Again, the strategy was to strip that anyway, because I wanted to make sure that when we got to end game, we could deliver. We could deliver on that. So again, we stripped another PG. I was still counting on the fact that he had probably at least one more in hand, because we saw 2. I felt like there might have been one in the damage zone, but I can't remember exactly. He does go off. So you see here, he actually does get perfect Riser, which he then proceeded to counterblast in order to get his battle Riser that he created with the skill to suck up all the Razors and get his 23k. At this point, I'm like, how is this match going to go? But I still felt confident that we were only at 2 damage, and that, you know, we still had PGs in hand. So there really wasn't too much to worry about. Like, I was actually sitting pretty solid in this matchup. So yeah, he gets rid of the grade 2. He actually swings with just the smart, because no matter what, this thing was going to connect, or he thought this thing was going to connect because of 23k. But he didn't realize I had a PG in hand, unless he was hoping that, you know, if I did, he'd strip it from me. But I denied him that, and we still, again, he's still at 5 because he could not check into a heal. So we passed him my turn. I actually get into another PG, which sets up even more, you know, it just secured the match. Like, having PGs against perfect Razor just really puts you in a sweet spot. So yeah, we end up doing my strategy. I was able to get off the Garmore. I was able to ditch and get a Snuggle. So we filled up the entire back row for 9k. So this is 17. That's 18. You know, this is 20. And so I knew right now we're swinging for game. At this point, we're just swinging for game. Because at this point, he probably only had 1 or 2, I think 1 PG, I think, left in hand. So yeah, we stripped the last PG. And then now we swing with Garmore. And this was the finishing move. This is how we won the match. He unfortunately could not damage into a heal. So Derek, if you see this footage, man, I feel bad, because he did come back and actually contest me when I had to switch to my Kagero deck, which I will be going over that footage in another video segment. He was able to contest me and actually put me in a bad spot with perfect Razor with my Kagero deck. That one, I think he ends up actually winning, because I think that one I went what was it? 1-1. I lost 1. I may have lost. I ended up going 2-1, I think, on that one. I can't remember. Anyway, guys. So stay tuned for round 5, where I get to go up against my boy Juan Mango. Again, Derek, if you see this video, man, I hope we get to challenge each other again. It was really fun fighting you. And I look forward to future matches, maybe in other tournaments with you. So, yeah, guys, let's stay tuned for the next segment. Juan Mango 64. So, Juan, if you see this footage on my channel. Thank you, brother, for an awesome match. It was a lot of fun. You definitely threw me a curveball. I know that Juan is a very big Kagero fan. I know that's pretty much like his jam. So he played OTT in this matchup, and that threw me off because I honestly was not expecting it. I was really thinking he was going to go Kagero, so I was just kind of like, you know, what's happening here? What's going on? So we ended up ditching all of that out so that we can mulligan, hopefully, to get our pieces for our ride chain, because I ended up having 2 pieces of the ride chain grade 3 in my hand, and we obviously didn't need that. But everything gets right with the world because we do end up being able to, you know, ride into the grade 1. We got it off the top, so then we proceed to give him a point of damage, and you know, we share damage at this point. So he only rides into Maiden of Libra. I was actually expecting him at this point to actually go a little bit more aggro, you know, throwing it on grade 2 right here, maybe hit me for face and then swing with this column at my face to maybe put me at 2 damage and give himself an interceptor to soak up some damage. So it really came as a surprise to me. I did go ahead and I was able to ride into the grade 2 because I had it in hand since I wasn't able to check it on the top 5. Unfortunately, we did soul charge a Garmore, but given what resources I had in my hand, I do proceed to throw down a Garmore. I do not invoke its ability, and I actually already had a Snuggle in hand, so we do, you know, go ahead and commit on that strategy. We unfortunately were not able to thin the deck out, but we were able to make a column out of it, and it still hit because we were able to line up for 20k and hit his 19k and contest it. So, I was actually also expecting maybe since he's running OTD that maybe, you know, he would, go into Tsukuyomi, or he was maybe do the Tsukuyomi originally, but when I saw obviously that he was running the Lodges Magus, I'm like, okay, this is not Tsukuyomi, so he must be going like season 1 OTT, which he was, because he goes into Amaterasu, which is still a pretty powerful unit, do not get me wrong, but it was just, I was a little taken back. I was a little surprised. I was like, what is he doing? What kind of craziness is this man doing? But I was still like very hyper focused because with OTT, if they get you into a bad spot, like if he got me to 5 damage and he got Silent Tom, it was going to be heal or go home, or go, you know, yeah, heal or go home, because that's all you can do against Silent Tom. Silent Tom is just such a powerful unit that when you're at 5 damage, as long as it can hit, if you don't heal, then that's just, you know, that's GG. It's a good game. So in my mind, I was trying to be mindful of what he had on board, how many cards he had, trying to check and see, you know, what Silent Toms, you know, had he seen, if he saw any at all, and trying to be mindful of my damage and try to be careful of how much damage I allowed him to, you know, give me, so that I wouldn't be pushing to that corner of Silent Tom, you know, just ending it. So anyway, we move forward, guys. He does deal, like, he pushed me to 3. We do get the ride chain off. So at this point, you know, we're checking the soul. We're seeing what we got. I ditched the Gasolite back into the deck so that we can fetch out Blaster Blade. Now, this is where I'm trying to make a decision. Do I activate Blaster Blade or do I activate Gasolite or Galahad? And you find yourself in those positions a lot where, you know, you got to make that decision. Do I pop it with Blaster Blade, or do I go, you know, full on aggro with Galahad? And what are my chances? You know, what's the best strategy here? And so I decided to go ahead and fill my field up so that what I can do is I could use this to kill the Mocha, and then proceed to hit with the Galahad. And then if I hit any triggers, I would go ahead and power up Blaster Blade, and that way I can potentially maybe get 3 damage off this turn if I hit a trigger. Unfortunately, we whiffed. So the only option was left was to actually go ahead and go up against the Sakura. But he does hit a heal, so that, you know, that actually set us back a little bit. But we did damage out a Silent Tom, which was a huge benefit on our behalf because that gave me a little bit of relief. I'm like, okay, we've seen one, so we have knowledge that at least one Silent Tom is actually not in his deck. So now we're going to move forward. He re-rides Amaterasu. Now, the reason why is he wanted to go ahead and get that soul. So his strategy was that he was going to fill up the soul and be able to get her Mega Blast off, because he wasn't using Counter Blast for anything else in this deck, because they just don't. Like, OTD doesn't really use Counter Blast. So the ability was, as long as that attack hits, you know, it doesn't matter what it hit, he was going to be able to Counter Blast 4, Soul Blast 6, and then proceed to get the Mega Blast off and draw into his cards. I mean, it's a solid strategy, and I can see why he's doing that, because he wanted to dig for the Silent Toms. He wanted to dig for his PGs. Unfortunately, for this turn, though, he did not have the soul, because he only had 5. You need 6 soul in order to initiate the activation of her ability. Alright, so now at this point, guys, we're 4 damage. We still got 2 Snuggles on board. And the good thing about like OTT, you don't have to worry about them actually, you know, blowing up your Snuggles. So with this deck, you can feel safe by putting your Snuggles in the back row, because you just know they're not going anywhere. OTT is not that kind of deck. So we do go aggro here, and we decide to go ahead and like get rid of his Maiden Libra, and then proceed face. So we're going to swing for like 21k here, and then hope again that if we hit a trigger, we're going to power up the rear guard column with Blaster Blade, which we do hit a trigger. This puts us at 22. We hit another trigger, so now this is going to put us at 27k. And at this point now, he's got to, you know, ditch a PG, or, you know, it's going to be GG at that point. Because even if he had damage checked a trigger or a heal trigger on the 6th, we still would have climbed over it. And that's kind of the mindset that I go into. I want to try and line it up so that on the chance that they hit a 6th heal trigger to come back, I can climb over it and be able to take them out of the game. It doesn't always work, but that's kind of the mindset that you try to put yourself in. It's like, okay, in worst case scenario, how do I still win? Now at this point though, he's got 17 cards in deck. He did soul charge a Oracle Guardian Wise Man, and I got a little nervous. Because he got the Silent Tom, but the only problem with this whole strategy is that I was at 4. But at this point, I'm like, I realized what he was doing. He was actually using the Silent Tom as a damage mitigator in a way to like get, you know, potentially, hopefully, something off my board. Unfortunately, he doesn't even check a trigger at this point, and Tom is just sitting dead, and he's not able to do anything. So there was no worry there. So now at this point, I'm like, okay, now I have knowledge of 2 Silent Toms. You know, and again, he wasn't even able to get the Amaterasu ability off, because he had ate some of the counterblasts have been eaten up. So I proceed now. I've only got 1 counterblast. Actually, no, I don't think I had a counterblast available at this point. So I do drop the Galahad, and I just try to make columns at this point. So we do drop the Garmore onto the last rear guard, and we use the weaker column here in order to get rid of the Silent Tom. And at this point, I'm just hoping he doesn't have PGs in hand. I'm just hoping that we can actually just seal the game off. We do hit a heal, but it was whiffed because we were already, you know, we were at 4, he was at 5. But we do proceed to power up the Garmore rear guard column. He did have a PG, and so now again we swing and we just hope that he didn't have a last PG. Unfortunately, he did not, and so it was like, okay, can he check a heal? And he did not. So yeah, it was a fun match. It was definitely a worrisome match, because I never know how OTT is gonna go. Never know, like, are they gonna go off? Are they gonna draw cards? Are they gonna, you know, how many Solid Toms have they got? How many PGs do they have? Because that's the 2 things you got to think about. How many Solid Toms and how many PGs are they, you know, do they have available in their arsenal? And you've got to be mindful of your damage. You have to be mindful of what you allow through, like how far do you allow them to push you and try to damage control throughout the match. And unfortunately, it didn't fall on Juan's favorite one. I'm so sorry. But if you see this, awesome match, bro. Awesome match. But anyway, guys, that was it for the Royal Paladin matchup of the Swiss round 5s matchups. So yeah, Garmore Galahad was putting in a lot of work in the Swiss rounds. I never had a problem getting the ride chain off. I never had problems like really getting my abilities off. It just came down to decisions. It came down to positions and what the circumstances were in those matchups, and how I proceeded to use my cards to the best of their ability. And that's really what you have to do, I mean, with any deck, but you know, especially like with this deck though, because there are bad matchups. Like Kagero is a very bad matchup for Garmore Galahad. And Spike Brothers, which you'll see, we got Spike Brothers footage coming soon in the next, when we view the top 8 matchup pairings. So yeah, guys, that was it for the round 5 matchup. Stay tuned because we're gonna go into the top 8. My first pairing was against Living Proof, who went undefeated in this tournament. Proof, if you do see this, man, I tip my hat to you. Congrats. You played perfectly. Your deck went off, man. It was awesome seeing you get all the way up to the top, man, undefeated. Kudos to you. Congrats. Again, I say this, guys, if I was going to lose to anybody, like, I'm really happy that I got to lose to him. Unfortunately, this matchup was rough. He was playing Spikes, as what Living Proof is known for, and Spikes is super pressuring, unfortunately. We played to the best of our ability. I did not hit triggers as much in this matchup. Things kind of went a little screwy, so let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit. Let's back that up. All right, so on his first turn, he goes into the Goblin, and I was able to get my ride chain grade 1 off, and so I whiff on my drive check. I was a little reluctant to even give him a damage because of Mech Trainer back there. I'm like, this is gonna go bad because he's either gonna do one or two things. He's gonna get Dudley or he's gonna go after the PG, and he did exactly what I thought he was gonna do. He uses the Mech Trainer in order to fetch out the Dudley. Now, unfortunately, also went bad for us too, is he got the Bracky. This put us in a really bad spot early on, and then again he proceeds to get this Dudley off. You'll see later when this actually goes off what happens. But yeah, he throws down the Goblin. He's setting up his plays. Like, he already is like planned out exactly his formation. He's planning out exactly what it is that he wants to do. And right now, there's nothing I can do about it. I'm taking 2 hits. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm taking 2 hits. And for him, he's cushioned because now he has a defensive piece right here in Bracky. Or he would have had. I'm sorry. I forget Bracky actually goes back into the deck. So forgive me on that, guys. All right. So now he goes into General Sifrid. This is bad. This was bad because now he had 2 open rearguard circles. If he drive checked into anything, then he would be able to superior call the trigger. But he does drop the Reckless Express here, which kind of sort of gave me a relief because I was like, okay, we can kind of maybe deal with this. But he left that 1 circle open on the chance that if he hit a trigger, because if he hit a trigger, then it would line up with the Goblin, and that would have been bad. That would have been like super bad. So now we see that he uses Dudley's ability and he gets Skydiver. And again, I'm just kind of like, oh, this is going to hurt because we're still dealing with the Vanguard attack. This is not resolved yet. All of this is going off before the Vanguard even finishes doing what it does. And he drive checks twice. He just had the perfect drive check, unfortunately. And he proceeded to actually power up the Goblin, which was a brilliant strategy. Like, he played it to the T. And I was just kind of like trying to prepare myself of how I was going to deal with this. How was I going to be able to contest his board on my turn? And so yeah, it was brutal. So now we see Skydiver goes into Soul because the onslaught is not over, because now he's got 25k and now he hits me and puts me at 5 damage. So turn 3 against Spikes, I was pushed to 5 damage. He did not hit a crit at any point. It was all pure Spike Brother power going off, just a crush rush going off. And there's nothing you can be mad about that. Like, you can't be sad about it. You can't be mad. Like, the deck was doing what it does, and he played it to the T. I will always say that. So now we go into Galahad. And at this point, I want to try and push him back a little bit because I'm like, we're at 5, he's at 2. We're really behind in this game. And the strategy was, let's put the heal in there. Let's put the heal back into the deck. Let's get the Blaster Blade, help thin the deck and put triggers in and pull stuff out that we don't want in the deck. And hopefully hit the heal so that we can try to come back from, the brink of defeat. We had enough Counterblast that I was able to activate both skills of Blaster Blade and Galahad. So that kind of went in my favor. I wasn't really worried so much about the Reckless Express, but it was a thought in my mind that I really don't want Reckless Express on the board because it is another pressure piece of his. It is another piece in his arsenal I didn't really want existing on the board. So I do go face because what I want to do is leave myself open that if on the off chance he does not hit a trigger and I hit one, then I could climb over the damage output and be able to deal even more damage and push him to 5 damage. So unfortunately, again, he does get a draw trigger, and that changed the wave of that battle because now I could not get over him. Had he not hit that trigger, I could have taken him to 5 damage. So I chose that Reckless Express was obviously needed to go. So the idea behind this too was to cushion damage on his turn with my Blaster Blade and then contest him by getting rid of his pressure piece. But the only problem is too, guys, you look at this matchup, he's got 2 open circles. This left him in a sweet spot for Siegfried. So if Siegfried actually drive checked into a trigger, he's going to superior call it and he's going to get multiple attacks. He also got the Juggernaut Maximum here, so that put us in an even worse spot. And he's got Bracky. So this was looking bleak and looking bleaker as it went on. Because we pushed him as hard as we could in that last turn for game. To try and back him into a corner like he backed us into a corner. And I was hoping all along the way that maybe I would hit a heal. You know, that maybe if I'd have hit a heal, we could have soaked up some damage. We would have been able to come back a little bit. But unfortunately, the triggers did not fall in my favor in this matchup. They just didn't. So he gets rid of my board. I'm left with nothing but my Vanguard. I can't remember if I actually have a PG or not. But the PG just didn't matter because of what's about to transpire. So watch this. So now Dudley goes off. He's going to CB2. He's going to search his deck. So you put a card from your hand into so you call any card from the deck to an empty rear guard. It's beautiful. And then he gets that. He gets the Devil Summoner that proceeds to get him the PG. And now he's got a whole nother column. His drive checks didn't go off. Thankfully that time they didn't go off. But we were still sitting in just a really bad spot. Okay, so I did have a PG in this turn. I just can't remember, and since the Ezreal's up there, guys, I can't really see exactly what I got. So, yeah, we blocked it. We blocked it. Actually, I think I had a third one. I think I had 3, and he stripped. Yeah, he stripped all 3. Now it comes back to me. He stripped all 3 of my PGs in one turn. In one turn, he pushed me so hard. So now I'm having to think, you know, what am I going to do? How are we going to get ourselves out of this predicament? What do we do from here? Okay. So we do go Garmore. I switched my strategy up. I'm like, if we can't go offensive with Galahad, we're going to go defensive. So I started using the Snowball and Garmore engine at this point. Because now what I can do is I've got interceptors and I can kind of cushion his attacks. I can try to be more defensive in my strategy and try to contest his board. Again, I'm hoping all along the way for a heal, and we were just whiffing. We whiffed so hard, and all it would have taken was like 1 or 2 triggers on our side to kind of turn the tide of this matchup. Unfortunately, he does have a PG. Because I was trying to keep track too of how many PGs I saw, because I knew he had that one, and it was, again, it was hoping that he didn't have that PG. I was super hoping that maybe he didn't, but unfortunately, he did. So you can see things are just kind of working against us in this matchup. They were definitely not going in our favor whatsoever. All right, so we fast forward a little bit more, and so now we see that he gets the Devil Summoner. You know, he gets that off of the Devil Summoner. That put us in an even worse situation. Like, it was just like, really, now we had another attack to deal with. We had no PGs in hand. And it was like, can we please hit a heal trigger? Can we at least hit a heal trigger at this point? Unfortunately, we did not. And we lost. So you've seen, guys, you see how like the deck can go off when it goes off. You see the strategy, the mindset in my plays and how I choose to play this deck. And I like the idea behind this deck that it's got 2 modes. It's got defense and Garmore with the pups, and then it's got offense with the pups, but with Galahad, because Galahad's your pressure piece. You know, you're swinging for crits, and you've got a lot of strategy in this deck. You've got a lot of strategy, you got a lot of good things going for you. Unfortunately, like with any deck, okay, with any deck, guys, if the triggers just don't go off, they just don't go off, and if they don't go in your favor, then you know that can determine how a matchup plays out. But I played to the best of my ability. Everybody who I went up against played to the best of their ability, and we gave it our all. And that was a beautiful thing, guys. Like, I cannot be mad. I cannot, you know, I had a blast. It was a time of my life. And if I could do it all over again, I would. And I hope that sometime in the future that we can actually do this all again. I do hope, guys, that you learned something today. I hope that maybe I gave you some insight into the Garmore Galahad deck. Maybe you guys will give it a try. Maybe you're like, I might want to actually try that deck. I didn't think about it, but maybe Anteiku gave me some ideas. And I hope I did, guys. I hope I was able to shed some light on this deck. I hope I'm able to give you something to maybe look forward to, maybe build for yourself. And that's it, guys. I will be doing another segment of this tournament at a later date. It's going to be my Kagero matches, because in this tournament we used a lead deck, which for me was my Royal Paladin Garmore Galahad, and we had an anchor deck, which was my Kagero deck. And I will be showing you footage from that. We're going to do the same thing in the next video, where we break down each pairing and I show you how all those pairings ended up, and give my thoughts and comments on my gameplay, on my choice of cards, and why I did what I did. So yeah, guys, until next time, as always, stay strong, stay healthy, and stand up, my Vanguard.